Thanks for joining, everybody. This is Air Quality Frank, and this is the podcast, You Are What You Inhale. Today's vacuum cleaner day. We are going to be testing a whole variety of different types of vacuums and how they actually impact your indoor air quality, your breathing, your sinuses. A lot of people don't think that vacuum cleaners could actually impact their air quality. People use vacuums to keep the house clean. Why would it negatively impact your air quality? Not something that people regularly think about, but actually in my 27-year history of forensic indoor environmental consultants and air quality assessments, a lot of times when people have indoor allergies or are not feeling well, certainly it can be other things in the house, but one of the main culprits is actually what's coming out of the exhaust of some of these vacuum cleaners. Now, it's important to remember as we do a little bit of testing today and have a little bit of fun, it's got nothing to do with the brand. So I'm not here to bash any brands at all. It has to do with the seals on these units and whether they're still intact or whether whatever filtration devices there are in these vacuums, whether they are actually working or if the air is bypassing it. In a lot of cases, you just don't know unless you have a very expensive laser particle counter that counts dust and debris coming out of something or in the air and so forth. So what we're going to do today is we're going to test different vacuums. You may have some of these, you may have seen some of them, and then I'm going to show you what a properly HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner does or does not do to your air. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We're going to take some actual readings and we're going to talk about how this could impact your overall health and well-being. Well, let's have some fun. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to take an air reading to see what the air quality is like before we start up all these vacuums. So I'm just going to take a quick reading to see what we start with, and then we'll do another reading after we're done to see what we've done to the air as we also show you what's coming out of each vacuum. So I'm just going to finish the reading here real quickly and put on my glasses. As I get older, I need these. So we're starting with about 5,200 particles at the smallest size, which is 0.3 micron. That's a measurement of a particle mass. A micron is 1 millionth of a meter. To give you some context, a human hair is usually 50 to 75 microns. So 0.3 microns is very small. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And right now in here, there has been no activity. We have about 5,200 particles at that size. Let's see what these vacuums do. So we're going to start with a fairly popular one. Again, the brand does not matter. I'm not here to diss any brands, but this is a fairly popular model that you may have seen. I'm going to start it up and take a reading and see what's coming out of the exhaust. So this one here is putting about almost 7,000 particles in the air. So if you recall, we started with about 5,200. So running this one at 7,000 is actually adding more junk into the air. Plus, as I'm standing beside it and using it, I'm inhaling quite a bit of particulate. 6,953 to be exact, but let's round it up to 7,000. Let's test a couple more. So here we've got a different model, an upright wand that's also rechargeable. Let's see what happens to this one. This one's actually not that bad. It has spewing out of the exhaust 689, a lot different than 7,000, but there's still some particulate coming out. So 689 is coming out of this upright. Here we've got another one. We're not going to give up on just one or two. So this is also one that you might see in readily available in department stores. Let's try it and see what happens. If I can get it working, that is. There we go. Okay, this one is putting about 3,300 particles at 0.3 micron into the air. So not as bad as that first little one, but still a fair amount going into the air that we breathe. So here we've got one different one. It's not a cordless, it's corded, you plug it in. It is also one of the popular models out there. Let's see what happens with this one. So this one also doesn't do that well. About 4,800 particles at 0.3 micron are spewing out of this. So what's happening with all these vacuums is that they are, yes indeed, sucking up stuff off the carpet, off the floor, but they're picking up the big stuff, and that goes in a canister or in a bag, whatever the technology is, and the small particulate come out of the exhaust into your face, basically, and into the air that now then can settle out again as ordinary dust covering your counters, your furniture, your floor, and you start the cycle all over again. Not really ever removing a lot of fine particulate. The big stuff, cereal, hair, all that kind of stuff gets sucked up, but the small stuff that you would inhale tends to come through these vacuum cleaners. I'm going to show you what a HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner spews out into the air. So I'm going to show you again what a HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner is going to spew into the air and what that does to the overall air quality. In some cases, we might get zeros coming out of it, meaning there's nothing coming through the HEPA filter. In other cases, we may get particulates, but it shouldn't be more than about a 5% at the most coming out of a vacuum cleaner than what's going in. So since we're not actually vacuuming the floor, I know we started with 5,200 particles in the air, so we're just sucking that air through, and I want to see how much this vacuum cleaner takes out of that particulates. So we shouldn't get more than about 200 particles if I do the math right, because a HEPA is supposed to keep about 97% of the particles and let the rest flow through. It's not the exact calculation, but for now it'll do. The others we're actually adding to the particulates in the air. So let's start this up, and we'll do the same test that we did with all the other ones, which is I'm using a laser particle counter to test the air coming out of the vacuum cleaner. So how do we do that? We test what's coming out of the exhaust. So the air in this model comes out of the top here. I'm just going to start this up, and so far we got no activity. Now we're getting some, but not bad, and not bad at all. We have 218 coming out of this vacuum cleaner. I'm going to lean over so that you can actually see this properly. So you can see, I'm going to turn this off for the noise, you can see that this HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner is not polluting the air. So if you have asthma or sinus issue or respiratory issue, this one, because it's HEPA filtered, puts very little, if anything, in the air. The other vacuums, there were a variety of different ranges in numbers. Some had 7,000, some had only 900 and change, and some had 3,000. But that's still too much. You want to take as little out of the, as much particulate out of the air as possible, and have as little coming through the exhaust so that you're not breathing this in. I hear a vacuum cleaner in the other doorway. I'm going to sneak over and see if we can do another test with a commercial one. We'll do that in just a second. So we can see here that this one spews out almost, I would say, almost 4,000 particles. So again, another good example of a vacuum cleaner that's cleaning the floor but not the air. So that concludes our little test today here of a variety of different vacuum cleaners that when you use them, again, I'll just tell you this story one more time. Every time you use them, you're picking up the big stuff off of the floor, off of your hardwood floors, your vinyl floors, ceramic floors, off of the carpeting, what have you. And yes, it looks clean, but what's coming out of the vacuum cleaner, out of the exhaust, is spewing into your face. You're inhaling it. You could get sinus irritation, respiratory issues, because in dust there could also be mold spores, there could be rodent droppings, there could be all sorts of seasonal allergens, bacteria, viruses, you have it, that are trapped in dust itself. Dust can harbor a lot of allergens and cause some serious sinus and respiratory issues for people suffering from asthma, COPD, other sinus and respiratory issues. So you should pay special attention to your vacuum cleaner and make sure it is a properly HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner that does not pollute the air. I can't stress this enough. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, You Are What You Inhale. Air Quality Frank signing off, and hope to see you when you join me next time on another podcast about your indoor air and your overall wellness. Have an amazing day.